Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I think there's a confusion between two very different things here. The first thing, and this is an issue where the ulama are in agreement with, the four madhabs are in agreement with, which is that you are not allowed to go to a non-Muslim judge, non-Muslim qadi. That is because that qadi, if he is not Muslim, his judgment is not valid. From the conditions of having a court and a judicial system is that it's done by Muslims. So if the qadi and the whole system that has been set down on non-Muslims, then they are not ruling by the Sharia, and then that will not be valid. That's one thing, and we agree with that. However, when you register something, you are not going to them for the purpose of judgment. You are going to them for the purpose of you registering with them the fact that you are now married. Hence, the ulama, the contemporary ulama have said, even if you register your civil marriage, it doesn't take the ruling of nikah. You have to do the nikah. And when the nikah is done properly with the wali and the witnesses, etc., proposal and acceptance, once that has been completed, you can do whatever you want. It's similar to a person having a child within wedlock. That is the Islamic ruling. Then what do you do with registering the child's name, or getting a passport, or registering them into the schooling system, etc.? Permissible, because you're not going to the kuffar now for the purpose of judgment. You're going to the kuffar now for the purpose of registration. Some of the ulama have said this registration is permissible, because that person is not going to them for the purpose of judgment. They're going only just to say, okay, that person is my partner now. So the registrar will say, Walaikum salam. The registrar will then say, okay, are you sure you want to do this with one another, etc. And maybe they might even officiate some things by having for you to say some things, but all of that is purely just logistics, because of the fact that you have already established your partnership from beforehand, and you are doing this now for the purpose of it being legalized, so that it is official, so that people's rights are maintained, so that you will get all the relevant care and need should you need it, etc. Hence, some of the ulama, and I think this is also a view from the World Committee of, what did it call it, the Majma Fiqhiyya, but I don't know how it translates in English, but basically committee of fiqh research. So basically, the scholars from all around the world, from different locations and different madhabs, they gather in Saudi Arabia and Jeddah, and they research certain issues, and this is known as the Majma Fiqhiyya. And if I'm not mistaken, they have said that registering the marriage is obligatory, because of the fact that there are so many people that commit to a marriage and then they end up being dishonest, or a person who pretends or seems to be religiously committed but in actual fact that they are weak, or people get married for the sake of citizenship, or people get married for the sake of taking others' rights, or taking the mahar, or taking maintenance, or taking custody, etc. And then when issues do arise, you've got nowhere to go, because if you do the nikah, and this happens on a daily basis, I'm telling you, I'm a witness to this. Brother and sister get married. Sister is not happy. She is not getting what she is supposed to get, because the person is not being responsible. Perhaps there is dishonesty in saying that he was going to do something, but he isn't now, after he's got himself in the nikah. What does she do now? What rights does she have? So she speaks to her wali, and wali, his hands are tied. So then she remains suspended. فَتَذَرُوهَا كَالْمُعَلَّقَةِ, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. This is not allowed. This is the way of Jahiliyyah. So you just leave her, and she's dangling, كَالْمُعَلَّقَةِ, suspended, not married and not divorced. And she can't go on with her life. She's not getting maintenance the way that she should, because he is being dishonest, etc. She can't even walk away and marry someone else. And it is as if that this woman is compelled to stay in a relationship that she doesn't want to. And this obviously will have a lot of psychological issues with it as well. The fact that she probably loved him and now he's broken her heart, or maybe even the other way around. And that she's not able to function correctly, she's not able to go about and have some kind of routine in her life, etc. Therefore, some of the ulama have said, in order to preserve people's rights, it becomes wajib to register the marriage so that the person who is registering the marriage from both parties are committed to saying what they're going to say that they're going to do. And this preserves people's rights. And I say that this is something which is definitely in practicality, something that needs to be taken into consideration, especially if one of the parties wants it. I think the more correct opinion is that it is permissible. It is down to husband and wife. Me, myself, personally, I did not do the civil marriage. I didn't see a need to. But if the families or the sister or the brother says, no, I think we need to, then that has to be taken into consideration. And the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, أحق الشروط, the most obligatory of conditions that need to be fulfilled, مستحل فرج, those things which the private parts and the aura and the care and the affection and the exposure of one another have been brought about because of this contract, meaning the nikah contract. If a person has taken a nikah contract, then they have to fulfill those conditions, and they have to fulfill whatever is going to maintain that contract in the best possible manner, because you have exposed yourself to her and she has exposed herself to you. So this isn't something that can be taken lightheartedly if the wife wants it or if the husband wants it. It is something that needs to be discussed wholeheartedly and honestly and with care and consideration and knowledge and empathy and transparency. So I think in answering your question here, I think there's a big difference between going to the kuffar for judgment and going to the kuffar for registration. We go to the kuffar for registration all the time. But even in the question here, there is the fact that she's alluding to, or he is alluding to, that he doesn't want to do it. And one of the major arguments here is that the woman gets more rights than she deserves according to Sharia. That would you be going to them for judgment. But if you apply for a civil divorce as well as the talaq taking place, whatever the judge or the system gives to the wife, she doesn't need to accept it. Remember, what we're saying is you're only going for the purpose of registration. You are not going for the purpose of judgment. So if they say, okay, well, she gets half of his wealth and he has to pay for things which are not Islamically within what is obligatory upon him, she doesn't need to accept that. So that might even be part of the conditions that she wants to then put down and say, okay, we'll do it, I want us to do it, but if they decide or judge that this is going to be given to me or given against me, then we refer it back to an Islamic scholar or an Islamic center, and they will be able to advise us with that, in the eventuality of that. Just reading a question again here. So he said he doesn't want to have to do something which by registering he will be legally bound to. So that's what I'm saying, you're not legally bound to it. You're registering in order to preserve people's rights in the case that there is oppression that takes place. And that's what the ulama are saying. Not for the purpose of judgment. This is understandable, as you can imagine, as in the law of equal rights, etc. Yeah, so I think I've answered everything here. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy for everyone that is involved, and that He gives them the ability to come to a conclusion, and that He opens their hearts to one another, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala places the truth in their hearts and on their tongues, so that they are able to establish that in their communication with one another. Wallahu a'lam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.